Millie's three greatest ideas. 1. Second grade. Crush leftover Halloween candy and sprinkle it into pancake batter. This was the morning after our first sleepover. 2. Third grade. The Wildlife Warriors. As members of the Wildlife Warriors, we walked around Prospect Park looking for injured birds, squirrels, and chipmunks, and if we found one, we would call the Parks Department and report our discovery. We only ever found two animals in trouble, a bird that couldn't fly and a squirrel that appeared to be limping. And the Parks Department people sounded more amused than concerned. But Wildlife Warriors was still mostly fun. 3. Fourth grade. World's longest lanyard. After Millie learned how to make lanyards at camp, she had the idea that we'd get into the Guinness Book of World Records by making the longest lanyard ever. We needed to figure out if there even was a longest lanyard record. Ours was only about 3 feet long. We weren't able to work on it as much as we wanted once our homework load picked up. Anyway, maybe it's weird for two people who were together as much as we were, but Millie and I had never had a fight. Even if her ideas weren't always ones I would have chosen, I got pretty tired of walking all over the park looking for hurt squirrels that didn't exist, and my fingers had blisters on them from so much lanyarding. It didn't seem worth it to start a disagreement. I always felt safe with her, until now. Because after I yelled that bit about the fish, she clearly was not happy. So now Millie was mad at me too, and not just at me, at my whole family. The list of things I felt guilty about was getting longer. Just to review, 5 things I felt guilty about at the end of 4th grade. 1. Exposing my parents as liars in front of the principal. 2. Sharing a family secret that got me kicked out of my elementary school with just 1 year left. 3. Taking my brother away from a promising high school musical career and possibly derailing his musical aspirations for the rest of his life. 4. Taking my brother away from his friends and his band. 5. Unintentionally devastating my best friend by revealing that her goldfish was not who she thought he was. One person who did not seem ready to forgive me anytime soon. Ted. I think he said about 3 words to me the entire summer. One person who did seem ready to forgive me, Millie. The night before she was leaving for summer camp, our buzzer rang. It was Millie, holding a whole case of peanut butter crackers. 3 apologies Millie made as we snacked on peanut butter crackers in my room. 1. I'm sorry I said that about your parents. 2. I'm sorry I did not do more to stop the crazy rumors about you at school. I tried, but they took on a life of their own. 3. I'm sorry I got so mad when you told me about the goldfish. I kind of suspected it anyway. 2 apologies I made. 1. I'm sorry I said that about the goldfish. 2. I'm sorry I told Mr. Lawrence where I live. I didn't mean to, but I know I messed up. Millie said I didn't have to apologize for that. She knew it was an accident. I told her I thought we might get to move back to Brooklyn once Dad's highway job was over. She said, well, then I hope they work fast up there in the boonies. 4 promises we made to each other. 1. We would always be best friends. 2. We wouldn't let anyone else be our best friends. 3. We would make our parents let us visit each other. 4. We would write each other emails or letters all the time. And that was it. Millie left early the next morning for camp. I wondered if saying goodbye was as weird for her as it was for me. She definitely seemed sad, but I was sad and more than a little scared. Like I said, I'd always felt safe with Millie. I don't think I realized just how safe until I started thinking about life without her. Mom hadn't made any summer plans for me since we were moving, and I suddenly felt like the only kid left in Brooklyn. 7 ways I spent the weeks before we moved. 1. Making a double wave friendship bracelet to send to Millie at camp. 2. Steering clear of Ted in general. 3. Watching skateboarders do tricks by the Prospect Park bandshell. Was skateboarding popular in Clover Gap like it was here? I had no idea. 4. Eating ice cream from my favorite ice cream place, Happy Cone, as often as I could. 5. Riding my bike to Brooklyn Heights with my dad so we could go to the promenade and try to memorize the Manhattan skyline. 6. Celebrating my birthday with spicy tuna and Alaska rolls at my favorite Japanese restaurant, Ariyoshi. I was trying to get my fill since Dad told me he didn't think there were any sushi places in our new town. 7. To quote my mom, moping around. She kept saying I should call one of my friends other than Millie, but there wasn't really anyone else I wanted to call. Sure, there were kids I was friendly with at school, and they all had their own things going on in the summer. Day camps, trips to the beach, art classes. The same things I would have been doing if we weren't about to move. And the truth was, Millie and I had always spent so much time together that there hadn't been a lot of space for anyone else. It had never seemed like a big deal until now. 4 things I learned when I Googled Clover Gap. 1. Population, 8,432. I didn't think that sounded that small until Dad told me the population of Brooklyn was more than 2 million, and that there was something like 50,000 people in our neighborhood alone. 2. It prides itself on being the clover capital of the Northeast. Who knew that was a thing? 3. Every spring, it hosts Cloverfest. The people come from far and wide to celebrate the beautiful simplicity of the clover. Interesting. I'd never thought of clovers as either beautiful or simple. I'd never really thought of them at all. 4. Notable wildlife. Squirrels, chipmunks, foxes, groundhogs, deer, turkeys, raccoons, and gulp, bears. August. 6 things we found under the furniture the day the movers came. 1. 2 library books we thought we'd lost. Mine. 2. 3 loose drumsticks. Ted's. 3. A Rolling Stones record album. Even though we don't have an old-fashioned record player, Dad held on to a bunch of his old albums for sentimental and aesthetic reasons. So he was super excited when that one turned up. 4. A recipe for my grandma's soda bread. Mom's. 5. A funny old note from Millie asking if I wanted to sleep over at her house and warning me that her dad snores so loud she can hear it in her room across their apartment. Mine. 6. The Pinballs, my lost book from Mrs. Simmons' room. Mystery solved. 3 things the men from Clover Gap Movers said when they arrived. 1. Wow, this is such a cool neighborhood. 2. It's nothing like the boonies in Clover Gap. 3. Why would you ever want to leave the big city? With each new question they asked, Dad looked increasingly despondent. Finally he said, "Come on, guys, Clover Gap is great too, right?" The men looked at each other for a second, then one of them turned and went to open the back of the truck. The other one shrugged and said, "It's nothing like this place." 8 things I threw into my backpack before getting into the car to leave Brooklyn. 1. A pen. 2. My book of lists. 3. A book called Homesick. Mom said she read it when she was a kid and thought I might appreciate it right about now. 4. 3 granola bars. 5. Peanut butter crackers. 6. A drawing pad. 7. Mom's old iPod, which I'm trying to get everyone to start calling Annie's iPod. 8. The note from Millie. 4 things Ted said to me during the 7-hour trip to Clover Gap. 1. You're on my side of the seat. He said this one about 10 times. 2. Turn down your music. 3. That's my granola bar. It wasn't. 4. Wake up! We're here. This was more than he had said to me all summer. 8 things I noticed about Clover Gap as we drove into town. 1. Wider streets and no cars parked on the sides. 2. Way more trees than Brooklyn. 3. Also more churches. 4. No sidewalks. 5. Sometimes we had to slow down because we were behind a tractor. 6. Bigger yards. 7. Mailboxes at the ends of the driveways. 8. Bigger houses. 3 thoughts I had about my new house when we pulled up in front of it. 1. It's kind of old. 2. It's kind of pretty. 3. It's kind of purple. 2 reasons Mom and Dad didn't tell us the house was purple. 1. They wanted us to be surprised. We were. 2. They thought we might not be happy about it. I was. Ted wasn't. 4 complaints Ted had about the house. 1. The color is stupid. 2. The floors are creaky. 3. It smells weird. 4. There are too many stairs. 6 things I remembered Ted saying about houses over my whole life so far. 1. Our apartment is too small. 2. I wish we had a house. 3. All my friends have bedrooms that are bigger than mine. 4. There's no privacy here. 5, I wish we had more than one floor. 6, it's no fun using a slinky without stairs. He probably hadn't said that one in about 5 years, but still. When I reminded Ted about all these things, he spoke to me for the first time since we'd arrived in Clover Gap. Annie, stop remembering things! 4 ways I tried to cheer him up. 1, I pointed out the basketball hoop in the driveway. 2, I told him there was a creek in the backyard. 3, I asked whoever would listen, is that an apple tree? It wasn't. 4, I let him choose his room first. 3 things that makes Ted's room better than mine. 1, it's bigger. 2, it's on the 3rd floor all by itself. 3, it has a crawl space to the attic. 3 things about my room that are still pretty cool. 1, there's a window seat. 2, there are clouds painted on the ceiling. 3, it's beside Mom and Dad's room. I won't admit it to Ted, but I'm kind of happy to know that in this big old creaky house, my parents will be sleeping right next door. Dad's favorite things about the new house. Big kitchen. Dad likes to cook, so he says he's super excited about all the drawers and counter space. In Brooklyn, anytime he made a big meal, he wound up spreading out all over the place, and there would be lettuce drying on the radiator covers and roasted vegetables cooling on top of the TV cabinet. 2, backyard. 3, front yard. 4, basketball hoop. 5, driveway. Every time Dad comes inside, he makes a proclamation about how awesome something outside is, like he's just noticed it for the first time. What a joy not to have to look for a parking spot. Or, I can't believe all that grass out there is ours. I've never seen him rave about anything this way. In fact, he's raving so much that I'm starting to think he's faking it. He doesn't know how many times I've seen him reading the New York Times Metro section on his phone, or that I've noticed how whenever he starts his iPod, the first song he chooses is The Only Living Boy in New York. He knows I feel bad about making us leave the city, and he's trying to keep me from seeing how much he misses it. He's already homesick. Mom's favorite things about the new house. 1, like Dad, she's crazy excited about the bigger kitchen. 2, the screened-in porch. This'll be our reading spot, she keeps saying. 3, it has a room off the kitchen that she can use as her office. In Brooklyn, she just used a corner of the living room for her design work. Here, she has her own whole space. 6 things Mom and Dad want to change about the house. 1, rip up the old funky carpet in the living room. 2, replace all the wobbly doorknobs. 3, fix the shattered upstairs window. 4, repair the porch screens so mosquitoes don't take over. 5, paint the whole inside. 6, patch up the leaky roof. 10 things for a kid to do when she just moved and knows no one but her family. 1, moping some more. 2, still steering clear of Ted. 3, climbing the tree in our front yard. Turns out it's a dogwood. 4, looking for caterpillars on the dogwood branches and letting them crawl in my arms. 5, watching entirely too much TV, according to my parents. 6, hovering around Mom, watching her design at the computer. 7, helping Mom paint my room pale blue when she said I was hovering her to death. We left the clouds on the ceiling. 8, making Dad a triage list of which doorknobs were the most wobbly. Once Dad started his new job, he didn't have much time for house stuff during the week. So he gave me a little home improvement assignments like that. 9, dreading the first day of school. 10, wondering this place would ever feel like home for any of us. September. 4 sounds that woke me on the first day of school. 1, my alarm clock, which I smacked to turn off. 2, Ted's alarm clock, which he seemed to be ignoring or sleeping through. 3, a scary metallic grinding sound, like a mechanical dinosaur was eating a car. 4, Mom yelling, "Turn it off! Turn it off!" 5 favorite sounds. 1, a train on train tracks. 2, the ding our computer makes when I get a new email. 3, a basketball bouncing on pavement. 4, the subway conductor announcing our stop in Brooklyn. 5 acorns falling on our roof in Clover Gap. 2 things I saw when I went downstairs. 1, Dad scooping mounds of soggy yellow stuff out of the kitchen drain. 2, Mom looking super annoyed, tapping something furiously into her phone. Mom's pet peeves. 1, people saying, "I could care less," when they really mean, "I couldn't care less." 2, when me, Ted, or Dad forgets to take tissues out of our pockets and they wind up in the laundry. 3, shoes all over the floor when you first walk into the house. 4, my child is an honor student, bumper stickers on cars. 6 things they yelled at each other next. 1, Mom, I'm searching plumbers. 2, Dad, we don't need a plumber, I can figure this out. 3, Mom, we've never had a garbage disposal before. You don't know anything about them. 4, Dad, what's to know? 5, Mom, well, for one thing, apparently you can't dump a box of packing peanuts into one. 6, Dad, they were supposed to be biodegradable. After a pause, 4 things they said in a calmer voice. 1, Mom, I'm calling a plumber. 2, Dad, plumbers are expensive. 3, Mom, so are restaurants, and that's where we'll be eating if you don't have a working sink. 4, Dad, after an even longer pause. Fine, I'll call a plumber. Then Mom noticed me standing there. Oh, honey, it's your first day of school, she said with a weak smile. Can I get you some breakfast? 3 reasons I said, it's okay, I'll just have an apple. 1, the sight of Dad pulling gloppy mush out of the garbage disposal didn't do much for my appetite. 2, I didn't want to stick around and watch Mom and Dad do battle with the house. The excitement they'd had about this place on our first day here seemed to be wearing a little thin. 3, seeing as how it was my first day in a new school, I wasn't very hungry anyway. 8 things I was dreading about the first day of school. 1, new class. 2, new teacher. 3, having to talk more than I want to. 4, the teacher calling me Andromeda. 5, everyone thinking my name is weird. 6, lunch. 7, lunch. 8, lunch. One new thing that was bothering me. Mom and Dad are not happy about the new house. 4 things I'm better at than other kids. 1, remembering weird details, as we have established. 2, knitting, thanks to Aunt Pen. 3, typing. 4, making eggs over easy. 4 things I'm worse at than other kids. 1, blowing bubbles. 2, diving. 3, cartwheels. 4, one-handed bike riding. 5 ways my new school is different from my school in Brooklyn. 1, it's all on one floor. 2, it's newer. 3, there's no fence around it. 4, there's a big grassy field beside the playground. 5, it goes up to 6th grade instead of 5th, so I'll have to wait 1 more year to be the oldest in the school. 1 way my new school is the same as my school in Brooklyn. It smells the same. You know, like a combination of paste and construction paper and pencil shavings and bathroom cleaner. I wonder if every school in the country is required to have that smell. 7 questions asked by Miss Sylvia, the school guidance counselor, in our new student meeting. 1, so, you used to live in Brooklyn. 2, what brings your family to Clover Gap? Answer, my dad got a new job. Also, my parents say that living in a small town will allow Ted and me to have a more free-range childhood. That's what they've told us, but I didn't tell Miss Sylvia that part. This part because I hate when my parents say it. It makes it sound like we're chickens. And obviously, I didn't tell Miss Silva my theory that we actually moved because my big mouth and my big mistake. 3, what's your favorite subject in school? Answer, writing. 4, what is your least favorite subject in school? Answer, gym, unless we're playing basketball. 5, do you have any hobbies? Answer, stamp collecting. But not really. I hate when people ask me what my hobbies are because I feel like I'm going to let them down or confuse them by saying making lists. So I usually say the first thing that pops into my head when I hear the word hobby, and that is stamp collecting. I think I have 3 stamps. 6. Do you have any special talents? Answer: I'm a good writer. What I didn't say is having a crazy memory for random information. Is that considered a talent? What about blending in so well that people forget you're there? Is that a talent? If so, then those are mine. I guess those skills could make me a good spy someday, but right now I don't want to be a spy. Which brings me to Miss Silva's next question. 7. What is something you want this year? Answer: I'd like to be faster at solving math problems. 3 things I didn't tell Miss Silva that I really want this year. 1. To be a regular kid who blends in and doesn't notice or remember too much or say the wrong things. 2. For my family to be happy in Clover Gap so they'll stop caring that I made us leave Brooklyn. 3. At least 2 new friends in my new school. I'll never meet anyone as great as Millie, but I feel like I need to try for safety in numbers. Backup friends seem like a good idea in case something goes wrong. I know there's a challenge here. How am I supposed to make new friends if I'm also invisible? But I don't want to get myself or anyone else in trouble the way I did in Brooklyn. Ways to be a regular kid, blend in, and make new friends all at the same time. Okay, so I have no idea. If I could think of even one thing to put on this list, I probably would have done it in Brooklyn, and I wouldn't have been so nervous for the first day of school here. 3 things that could have gone better on the first day. 1. My teacher, Mr. Albright, could have introduced me as Annie instead of saying Andromeda. 2. Everyone could have stayed quiet instead of saying, "Huh? What'd he say? What's her name?" 3. When I spoke up to say, "Just call me Annie," my voice could have been louder instead of coming out in a whisper. If I got to pick my own name, I would choose 1. Mia, 2. Lulu, 3. Vanessa, 4. Honeybee. 4 things that could have gone worse on the first day of school. 1. Mr. Albright could have made us choose our own desks, but he gave us assigned seats, so I didn't have to worry about someone telling me they were saving a seat for someone else. 2. Mr. Albright could have insisted on calling me Andromeda, like some grown-ups do, but he listened when I whispered that he should call me Annie. 3. Mom could have put an embarrassing, mushy note in my backpack the way she sometimes did when I was younger, but instead she just slipped in a little Reese's cup with a tiny smiley face drawn on the wrapper. 4. I could have sat all alone at lunch, but I met Zora. 11 things I learned about Zora. 1. She writes funny notes, like the one she passed me across the aisle in class this morning. Did the teacher say his name was Mr. Albright? Or Mr. Allright? After I read it, I looked around a little nervously. Passing a note about the teacher on the first day of school is a pretty gutsy move. I quickly drew a light bulb and wrote, "Albright, all right?" Then passed it back to her. She thinks I'm funny too. She giggled after she read my answer. Number 3, she's smart. Mr. Albright made us get into pairs to brainstorm suggestions of classroom rules, and she had some good ideas, like raising our hands with different signs to mean different things. 1 finger up for I have something to say. 2 fingers up for I have a question, etc. 4, she didn't try to make me talk too much. When I told her I didn't want to tell our rules to the class, she said, "That's okay. You can be the note taker." 5, she isn't shy. When I walked into the lunchroom, she saw me looking around for a seat, and she waved her arms like crazy and yelled, "Annie, come sit over here." 6, she is a pescatarian. That means the only kind of animal she'll eat is fish. 7, she is a cat with no tail. No one knows how it got that way. 8, she has an older brother who's the same grade as Ted, and a younger brother who's 6. 9, her mom grew up in Clover Gap. 10, her dad is from Jamaica. 11, she goes to Jamaica during every winter and summer break to visit her grandparents who still live there. 3 other kids at Zora's lunch table. 1, Charlie, likes to draw Star Wars characters, was wearing a fedora and sunglasses before school this morning. 2, Zachary, talks about Legos a lot. 3, Amelia, laughs at everything Zora says carries a heart-shaped lunchbox. 4 things Amelia did that made me feel weird. 1. Changed the subject when Zora introduced me. 2. Looked at everyone but me every time she talked. 3. Rolled her eyes when I said I thought Mr. Albright seemed nice. 4. Offered cookies to the other kids, then looked at me and said, "Sorry, I don't have enough. I didn't know there'd be another person at our table." 4 more not so great things about the first day. 1. I made a wrong turn on my way to the bathroom, and a 3rd grader had to point me in the right direction. 2. 3 more people called me Andromeda, the PE teacher, the school secretary, and the nurse when I dropped off a medical form my parents forgot. 3. I didn't know there was an afternoon snack time, so I hadn't brought anything to eat after lunch. 4. I kept thinking about Millie and wondering what she was doing in Brooklyn. 3 more sort of good things about the first day. 1. Zora shared her snack, pretzels and hummus, with me. 2. Our classroom has a lizard named Harvey. 3. I only got lost the one time. 9 questions Mom had asked me before I told her all the details of my day. 1. How was school? 2. Did you like your teacher? 3. How are the other kids? 4. Did it seem really different from Brooklyn? 5. What are your classmates like? 6. Who did you sit with at lunch? 7. What did you talk about at lunch? 8. Were those kids all friends already? 9. So all the kids were nice? Finally, I told her all the kids were mostly nice, but one kid, Amelia, was kind of snotty. I told her about the cookies. Mom's sympathetic list of times people were mean to her. 1. When she was 6, a big kid at the pool pushed her into the deep end and she freaked out because she wasn't a good swimmer. The lifeguard fished her out and yelled at her for being in the deep end when she hadn't taken a swim test. 2. When she was 9, some girls in her class wouldn't let her be in their secret club. 3. When she was 10, she had to borrow her mother's sunglasses on Hats and Shades Day at school because she didn't have her own, and a girl in her grade made fun of her because they were so uncool. 4. When she was 13, a boy told her he wouldn't dance with her at the school dance because she was too tall. After hearing the list, I felt a little better about Amelia, but I also felt pretty sad for Mom. One thing Ted told Mom about his first day of school before going to his room and blasting his music. It's different. 3 things I told Millie in my email to her that afternoon. 1. My teacher's name. 2. The names of kids I sat with. 3. That I thought the new kids were nice, but I could tell they weren't going to be as fun as she was. I didn't know if that last part was true. It was really too soon to know how fun anyone was going to be, but I didn't want Millie to think I was in danger of making a new best friend. 7 ways my new town is different from my old one. 1. People drive almost everywhere. 2. There is no train here. 3. There's no city nearby. 4. I was right. There are more bugs, like spiders in our basement. And I heard someone say something about snakes, so I'm watching out for those too. No bears so far. 5. I take the bus home from school instead of walking. 6. Most people here are white, and it seems like there are way fewer people with other skin colors, or people from other countries, or with different religions. Yes, it's pretty homogeneous, my mom sighed when I told her that Zora and her brothers were some of the only black kids at school. 7. There are different rules. 3 rules in my new town that I didn't have in my old town. 1. Call all grown-ups Mr. or Mrs., even if they aren't teachers. 2. Dogs do not have to be on leashes. I guess this is the opposite of a rule. It's kind of like an unrule. They just wander around the neighborhood as they please. 3. Take off your hat when you're inside. This is a tough one for Ted, who loves his Brooklyn Cyclones baseball cap. 3 ways Ted drives me nuts every day after school. 1. The drumming. Seriously. His bedroom is right above mine and the racket is constant. 2. Hogging the basketball hoop while he practices his free throw. 3. Burping the alphabet. 2 reasons Mom says I should be patient with Ted. 1. He's at a difficult age. 2. He had a bunch of friends back in Brooklyn and he hasn't really connected with anyone here yet. I feel like saying I had friends in Brooklyn too. I mean, mostly Millie, but still. It's not like moving was easy for me. even if it was all my fault, especially if it was my fault. 4 ways Mom and Dad are trying to keep Ted occupied. 1. Taking us to free concerts at the Clover Gap Theater, which Ted always complains are just a bunch of old guys playing banjos and tubas. 2. Drum lessons with a man named Mr. Tapper that was actually their gift to Ted for his birthday this year, not long after he moved. I think they hoped it'd be a good way for Ted to meet people, but it turns out he's the only one in the class. Dad keeps saying what a brilliant name Tapper is for a drum teacher. Ted keeps saying he's just another old guy who doesn't let him riff enough. 3. Making him do yard work. Ted has pointed out that some kids get paid to mow lawns and trim bushes. Dad's response, and aren't we lucky that we have you to do it for nothing? 4. Making him fold laundry. He's not exactly an expert at this. I know he's been unfolding duty when I find socks and underwear inside my shirt sleeves and pant legs the next day. My 3 least favorite parts of school. 1. Turn and talk time during morning meeting. See earlier, 4 reasons I'm quiet. 2. Oral presentations. 3. Kickball. We never really played kickball in Brooklyn. Kids there played wall ball or foursquare, and if I had a choice, I would usually hang with Millie and draw with sidewalk chalk instead. But the truth is, even if I had gone to some kind of serious kickball academy my whole life, I'm pretty sure I'd still be terrible at this game. 5 everyday objects that freak me out. 1. Porcelain dolls. 2. Toy clowns. 3. Can openers. 4. Brillo pads. 5. Kickballs. 8 things that happened during an average kickball game at my new school. 1. When one of the power kickers, like Charlie or Scarlett, goes up to kick, star pitcher Barry Siegler yells, "Back up!" 2. All the kids in the outfield back up like 50 feet to the edge of the playground. This is because the power kickers have mighty kicks that can send the ball into orbit. 3. After the ball goes into orbit, everyone on that team cheers. 4. When it's my turn to kick, Barry yells, "It's Annie!" I will admit this is an improvement over, "It's the new kid," which is what he said for the first couple of days of school. 5. The outfield kids all run forward and make a semicircle about 10 feet away from me, because I do not have a mighty kick. 6. I kick, the ball goes about 3 feet, and someone immediately catches it and tags me out. 7. No one on my team cheers, of course. The kids on the other team cheer a little. 8. I return to the bench and sit with the one other person in the class who appears to have no interest in kickball, a girl named Kate. 2 other things I have noticed during kickball games. 1. Charlie cheers especially enthusiastically for Zora. He cheers so much that I'm starting to wonder if he has a crush on her. 2. Kate is always humming on the bench. 4 things about Kate. 1. Hums a lot. 2. Wears glasses. 3. Doesn't seem to care what she does at lunch. Sometimes sits with Zora and Amelia and me. Sometimes sits with Scarlett and her twin sister, Josie. Sometimes helps Mrs. Otis, the librarian, shelve books. 4. Reads a book on the school bus and doesn't care where she sits there either. 2 of the most embarrassing moments in my life before today's kickball game. 1. When my kindergarten teacher, Miss Bell, saw me sucking my thumb in the back seat of my car after school. 2. The time I hugged a stranger's legs in line at the post office because I mistakenly thought he was my dad. My 1 most embarrassing moment after today's kickball game. Underwear flying out of the leg of my jeans after a kick. 12 events leading up to the airborne underwear incident. 1. My jeans felt uncomfortable all morning, especially on the left leg. I mentioned it to Mom, and she said that I was probably just outgrowing them, but there was no time to change if I was going to catch the bus. 2. As usual, we played kickball that afternoon. 3. When my turn came to kick, the outfield crew ran up to greet me like they always did. 4. I ran toward the ball, and for once I actually gave it a respectable kick. 5. It flew up, 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 up into the air, and so did something else. Just when I should have been pumped about my best kick ever, I was horrified to discover that the reason my jeans had felt weird all day was that something was stuck inside them. It was a pair of polka-dotted underwear left jammed inside my jeans leg by the world's worst laundry folder, my brother, Ted. But the underwear was not stuck anymore. No, it was soaring into the air, straight into the waiting hands of star pitcher Barry Siegler. Barry started yelling, "Underwear! Ew, it's underwear! Girls' underwear!" 8. Although it seemed beside the point to tell him that the underwear was clean, I tried anyway. "Oh, sorry, that must have been crumpled in my jeans. They're not dirty," I said. 9. Barry threw the underwear onto the ground and started yelling for hand sanitizer. 10. Everyone else was doubled over laughing. 11. Everyone, that is, except for the super-focused Angela Havens, who grabbed the ball, ran with it to first base, and got me out. 12. I retrieved my underwear, slunk back to my place on the bench beside the humming Kate, and made a mental note to strangle my brother.